crafters, it's Cynthia. I am back with a brand new video, and in this one I decided that I wanted to use some of the new items that I got as Christmas presents. So the first item that was the inspiration for the card I'm going to do is this wonderful background stamp from My Favorite Things. And this is a newer stamp, and it's called their Wavy Coloring Book, and it's in the cling rubber background stamp section of their store. So this one is going to be really fun, and I'm actually going to make several cards using different techniques, but I'll just use one of those techniques today. So I'm going to go ahead, take it out of its packaging, and when you just get your brand new stamps, they're going to have a protective layer on the back, which you can leave there if you want, especially for a big background stamp. Sometimes people just like to lay the stamp down right on their surface, ink it up, and then push their paper down onto it. So you don't even have to take this piece off if you don't want to. But if you have a mounting block that's big enough to hold this, then you take this off, and that exposes that kind of a cling surface. So this gray here is going to cling to your acrylic. So let's say this was a large enough block, stick it on there and see, that's going to cling. So I don't have one big enough, which is fine. So I am going to just lay it on my work surface and press my paper into it. I do that quite often and it doesn't bother me at all. So the one technique that I wanted to try with this is I'm just going to do some simple heat embossing, but I wanted to take a single piece of paper and leave a sentiment area in the center that's just 1 inch wide, running across the center of this panel, and then I'm going to have this background stamping up here and down here. So in order to do that and to keep this pretty much a single layer, I just took my masking tape and carefully laid a 1 inch wide strip right across that center. And so that's going to protect this piece of paper. And this paper is a really, really gorgeous, deep, dark purple. It's by My Favorite Things, and it's called Eggplant. And it's really a beautiful, rich, dark color. And to brighten it up, I am going to be using my Detail Gold embossing powder. So I think that's going to look really pretty. So let's see, the first thing I guess I want to do is treat this cardstock surface with my anti-static bag. So I'm just going to powder that up really well. And especially for such a detailed stamp, it'd be virtually impossible to try to, even if you had a fine paintbrush and just tried to whisk away some extra embossing powder, it'd be really difficult. So I'm just going to treat my surface the best I can, and then the taped area doesn't matter. So that's ready. Get this down, and I'm going to turn to my Versamark ink pad here, and I'm just going to really ink this up. Now, even though this is the first time I'm using this rubber stamp, since it is the red rubber and not photopolymer, it's going to accept this ink very well right away. Sometimes with the photopolymer you want to season your stamp a bit by stamping with it several times. There's different ways you can do it. But with the cling rubber, it's nice because it is ready to go right out of the package. And since there's so much to this, I am really trying to get every tiny bit inked. So, and of course you can tip it into the light and see that the surface is now shiny because it's wet with ink. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and lay this cardstock down right in the middle, trying to keep it sort of straight. I know this is a whimsical background, but I think if it were crooked, you'd be able to tell. So I am just going to go ahead, use my finger to really make contact between the paper and the stamp, but I want to be careful that I don't shift the paper. So I'm holding it down very securely with my left hand. And then the other trick is getting all the way to the edge of the paper. You want to be sure to really get that image transferred all the way. Because I already trimmed down this panel to fit my card front. So I've got one shot to get it right. Okay, that's about as secure as I can get it. So now, in one smooth motion, I'm going to pick that up, and maybe you can even see on this dark cardstock in the light that pattern is now transferred. And then I am using my detail gold because the lines of that image are so fine that I wanted to make sure I really got all the details. So I'm going to get some there, tip it, and then just kind of tap and let all that powder run down across the sticky ink. That looks nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on this end. I hope everyone had a real nice holiday. Ours certainly was. We got to visit with family, and I ate way too many sweets, and we still have sweets in the cupboards. Gosh. So that's not so great, but now we can go back to trying to eat healthy, make up for some of that indulgence. All right. I think I am going to grab a little dry paintbrush and just try to get some of that away from the tape. So now I'm going to go ahead, of course, heat up the tool and start melting. So that looks really lovely. Now I'm going to just carefully kind of look, especially around the edges and in the corners, and make sure that my powder is really melted. Very, very cute. All right, so that has cooled enough. Let me just give it another little shake. Now, the tricky part, which I really hope, is that I can, and I'm being so gentle right now because the last thing I want is for this cardstock to tear. So I am just very gently, and can you see what I'm doing? I have this tape very, very flat to the surface as I pull at a sharp angle, and that kind of helps the tape stay together. And I'm just coaxing it to come off all in one neat piece. And it's not a race. You can take as much time as you need. And then look, isn't that lovely? So we have a layered look, but we still only have one piece of cardstock. So that turned out really awesome. That is so elegant. So let me get a little bit of this dust away. And now this has created the perfect area for a sentiment. And just in case, I'm going to make sure that that tape didn't leave behind any stickiness, and it didn't. But of course I'm also going to pat it down well with my bag. and prepare that surface again. So the sentiment I'm using came from my other new stamp set, which is also by My Favorite Things, and it's the All Occasion Sentiments. And I loved the font of this, and I love the size. I love large words, especially with stamping like this. So I thought this would be a great set to have. So it has, of course, sending hugs, happy birthday, with sympathy, praying for you, smile, have faith, get well soon, many thanks, and best wishes. So definitely lots of very handy sentiments. Because, whoops, if you're a card maker, you definitely want to have as many sentiment expressions as you can get. So I already have it mounted on my block, and I can see the grid marks through my stamp. So I know my stamp is on there nice and even. And this is where it's going to run, just right through that inch wide center. And since this is photopolymer and a brand new stamp, I went ahead and just rubbed it across my palm until that completely clear photopolymer got a little bit milky looking or hazy. Just by rubbing it against my palm, I was able to get off that residual slickness from the manufacturing process. And of course you can also take the time to stamp it multiple times onto a piece of scratch paper, just to kind of season it and get it ready to go. Okay, so it's all inked up with that same Versamark ink, and now I'm just going to do my best to center it. And I should be using my stamp pad, but of course I never think about it until I'm right in the middle of stamping. So never mind. But I think this will be okay. I'm just going to give it a really nice press and make sure that I can see the stamp making contact with the paper. Okay, so that looks pretty darn good. Sending hugs. And now I'm just going to use that same detail gold. Naturally, you can use any color embossing powder that you want, but because that eggplant was such an elegant color, I thought that the gold would go well with it. Oops. Okay, so that's covered. See how pretty that is? Save my extras. And I will go ahead and melt this powder. There we go. And again, I'm going to help it cool a bit by just waving it. And then sometimes if you kind of coax it away from the direction that it wants to curl, you can help it flatten out. So that's pretty good. But isn't that pretty? Oh my gosh, that turned out so lovely. Gosh, I am so glad I got that stamp. It is just fabulous. Cool. Okay, so now I will get this out of the way. And my card base is just a typical A2 size, except for it is a top folding card. So I just took my card, or my piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, sliced it down the long way. So now this is 11 by 4 1/4. And I could pop this up on foam. I'm trying to decide. No, I think I'm gonna keep it flat, because my intention was to create a lovely card that was as much of a single layer card as I could get it. I tend to like embellishments and popping things up, and that's fine, but my goal was to try something a little different. And then just because it's been heat embossed, I'm gonna do a strip through the middle as well. And I just trimmed this down so it's a 1/4 inch smaller than the card base. So I'm gonna get this as centered as I can. All right, I'm gonna put it face down while I press it. I like to do that sometimes. There. Oh my gosh, I think that turned out so pretty. Sending hugs. Who wouldn't love to get a card like that? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I had a lot of fun putting this one together, and I look forward to all the new videos I'm going to do for 2017. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to do several different card styles with this same background stamp because you can do so many things with it, and it's just beautiful. So this was today's card. Please join me again very soon for another card, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.